My uncle grabbed my shoulder and whispered, "How long have you been watching me?" I was standing in his garage at 11:30 on a Wednesday night, holding a box cutter I'd grabbed off his workbench when I heard him come in through the side door. The overhead fluorescent lights made everything stark and shadowless, and his hand on my shoulder felt like it weighed 50 pounds. I could smell whiskey on his breath and something else, something chemical I couldn't place. His eyes weren't angry. They were calculating, like he was doing math in his head about what I knew and what he needed to do about it. My mouth went dry. The box cutter suddenly felt stupid in my hand, like bringing a plastic knife to a gunfight. I'd come here looking for answers about why my cousin Natalie had moved out 3 weeks ago without saying goodbye to anyone, why she'd blocked all of us on social media, why my aunt wouldn't talk about it. I thought maybe I'd find something in Uncle Raymond's workspace, some clue about the fight they'd had or whatever had caused the family to fracture. What I'd found instead was a locked filing cabinet, a desktop computer that required a password I didn't have, and a small camera mounted in the corner of the garage pointed directly at the driveway. The camera had a blinking red light. It was recording right now, recording us, recording this moment where my uncle's hand tightened on my shoulder and his voice dropped even lower. "Answer me, nephew. How long have you been spying on me?" I'd known Uncle Raymond my whole life. He was my dad's younger brother, the successful one who owned 3 car dealerships across the state, who had the big house in the gated community, who took the family on vacation to his lake house every summer. He was the uncle who slipped me $50 at Christmas, who taught me how to drive when I was 15, who'd written me a recommendation letter for college. He was charming, generous, well-connected. Everyone loved Raymond. My dad always said his brother had the golden touch, could sell ice to an Eskimo, could talk his way out of anything. Standing there in his garage with his hand on my shoulder and his breath in my face, I understood for the first time that those weren't necessarily compliments. I wasn't spying, I managed. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I was looking for Natalie's stuff. Mom asked me to grab some of her things if they were still here. It was a weak lie, and we both knew it. Raymond's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Natalie doesn't have anything here. She took everything when she left. And your mother didn't send you here at midnight, Gavin. Try again." The fact that he knew I was lying meant he'd been expecting something like this. The fact that he wasn't immediately throwing me out meant he was deciding how to handle me. Neither of those realizations made me feel better. I'd started watching Uncle Raymond 3 weeks ago, not long after Natalie disappeared from our lives. She was 22, just graduated from college, and she'd been living with her parents while she looked for a job. Then one Monday, she was just gone. Aunt Diane said Natalie had found work in another state and moved suddenly. Didn't want a big goodbye, needed space to figure things out. It didn't make sense. Natalie and I weren't super close, but we were family. She wouldn't just vanish without a word. When I tried calling her, the number was disconnected. Her Instagram went dark. Her college friends hadn't heard from her either. I asked my dad what happened, and he got this uncomfortable look on his face and said, "Family business sometimes gets complicated, and I should leave it alone." That response bothered me more than anything. My dad never told me to leave things alone. He was a science teacher, big on asking questions and investigating. If he was telling me to drop it, someone had told him to drop it first. So I started paying attention to Uncle Raymond because something about the whole situation felt wrong, and he was the last person who'd seen Natalie before she left. What I noticed first was the schedule. Raymond claimed to work long hours at his dealerships, leaving early and coming home late, but his cars weren't at any of the 3 locations when I drove by during the day. I started tracking his movements when I could, nothing crazy, just noting when I saw his black Lexus around town. He met with people in parking lots, always different locations, always cash exchanges that I could see from a distance. He went to a storage facility off Highway 9 every Wednesday and Friday, spent about 20 minutes inside, then left. He made deposits at 4 different banks, never the same one twice in a row. None of this was illegal by itself, but it painted a picture of someone keeping secrets, someone compartmentalizing his life. Then last week I followed him to a property outside the city limits, a small house on 5 acres that wasn't listed under his name when I checked the county records. I watched from the road as he went inside, stayed for 3 hours, and left, looking agitated. The house had cameras, multiple cameras, all angles covered. When I ran the property address through social media searches, nothing came up. It was a ghost house. That's when I decided to check his garage, thinking maybe I'd find paperwork or something that explained what he was doing. Instead, I found him. If you are enjoying this story already, please subscribe to see more stories like this. Raymond let go of my shoulder and stepped back, putting space between us. "You're a smart kid, Gavin. You get that from your dad. But being smart can be dangerous if you're not careful about how you use it." He gestured toward the camera in the corner. "That's recording everything. You broke into my garage. You're holding one of my tools. If something were to happen right now, the video would show you as the aggressor." My stomach dropped. He was threatening me while creating documentation that would protect him. This was calculated. Rehearsed even. How many times had he done something like this before? "I didn't break in," I said. "The side door was unlocked." "Was it?" Raymond smiled. "I'll have to check the footage. Might show something different." He moved toward his workbench, casual, like we were just having a conversation. He picked up a rag and started wiping down tools that didn't need cleaning. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to forget you were ever here. You're going to stop asking questions about Natalie and stop following me around like some amateur detective. And in return, I'll forget this happened. Where's Natalie? The question came out before I could stop it. Raymond paused mid-wipe. Natalie is fine. She's living her life. She doesn't want contact with the family right now, and that's her choice. You need to respect that. Then why won't anyone tell me why she left? Why did Aunt Diane cry for a week straight? Why did Dad tell me to drop it? Raymond set down the rag and looked at me directly. Because some things are family business, private business, things that don't concern you. She's my cousin. That makes it my business. No, Raymond said sharply. It doesn't. Natalie made decisions that had consequences. She's dealing with those consequences. That's all you need to know. The way he said it, like Natalie had done something wrong, made my anger spike. What did she do? What decisions? Raymond's expression hardened. The kind that hurt her mother and embarrassed this family. The kind that required a solution. Now drop it, Gavin. I'm not going to warn you again. A solution. He'd said it like he'd solved a problem, disposed of something inconvenient. The chemical smell in the garage suddenly seemed stronger. I thought about Natalie, who'd always been kind to me, who'd helped me with my college essays, who'd wanted to work in social services helping kids. What could she possibly have done that required a solution? I want to talk to her, I said, just to know she's okay. Not possible. Why not? Because I said so. Raymond's voice had gone cold. You need to leave now, Gavin. This conversation is over. I left because I didn't know what else to do. Staying seemed like it might escalate into something physical, and Raymond was bigger than me, older, and apparently willing to manufacture evidence if needed. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel, my mind racing through everything he'd said and hadn't said. A solution. Consequences. Embarrassed the family. None of it made sense, but all of it felt sinister. When I got home, it was past midnight. My parents were asleep. I went to my room and opened my laptop, pulling up everything I'd documented about Raymond over the past 3 weeks. Photos of him at the storage facility, timestamps of his movements, screenshots of the property records for that house. I added notes about tonight's confrontation, about the camera in the garage, about his threats. Then I did something I'd been avoiding because it felt too serious, too much like I was accusing my uncle of something terrible without proof. I opened a new browser window and searched for Natalie's name combined with keywords like missing person, endangered, police report. Nothing came up. I tried her full name, Natalie Ann Shepard, with the city name. Still nothing. I searched for recent news about Raymond's dealerships, thinking maybe there was some business scandal that had affected Natalie. What I found was a fluff piece from 2 months ago about Raymond being named Businessman of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. The photo showed him shaking hands with the mayor, smiling that golden touch smile. The comments section was full of praise. Outstanding member of the community. So generous with local charities. A real success story. I was about to close the laptop when I noticed a comment near the bottom that was different from the others. It was from an account with no profile picture, just a default avatar, and it said, "Ask him where the money really comes from. Ask him about the girls." The comment was 3 weeks old, posted the same week Natalie disappeared. I clicked on the account, but it had been deleted. Just that one comment remaining, like a ghost. The girls. Plural. My stomach turned over. I screenshot the comment and added it to my documentation folder. Then I spent the next 2 hours searching for any connection between Raymond and anything involving girls, trafficking, exploitation, anything. I found nothing concrete, but the absence of information started to feel deliberate. Raymond was too clean online. No controversies, no complaints, no negative reviews of his businesses beyond the occasional standard car dealership grievance. For someone who'd owned businesses for 20 years, that kind of spotless record seemed statistically impossible unless he was actively managing his reputation. At 3 in the morning, I finally admitted I was in over my head. If Raymond was involved in something criminal, I needed help. Real help. Professional help. But who could I go to? The police? And tell them what? That my uncle was creepy, and my cousin left town, and there was a weird internet comment? I had suspicions, not evidence. Going to my parents felt equally pointless. Dad had already made it clear he didn't want me involved, and Mom would just tell me to listen to my father. The next morning, I called Natalie's best friend from college, a girl named Kira who I'd met a few times at family gatherings. She was surprised to hear from me. "Gavin, is everything okay?" "I'm trying to find Natalie," I said. "Have you heard from her?" There was a long pause. "Not since graduation. She kind of ghosted everyone. I figured she needed space or something. Did she seem okay before that? Like, was she stressed or scared or anything?" Another pause, longer this time. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because something doesn't feel right about her leaving, and everyone in the family is being weird about it." Kira exhaled slowly. "Okay, this might be nothing. But the last time I talked to Natalie, maybe a month before she disappeared, she mentioned being worried about something with her dad. She didn't give details, said it was family stuff, but she seemed really upset. She asked me if I knew any lawyers who handled confidential consultations. I gave her a name, but I don't know if she ever called." My pulse quickened. "Do you remember the lawyer's name?" "Yeah. Hold on." I heard rustling papers. Teresa Grant. She does employment law and family law, has an office downtown. I wrote down the name. Did Natalie say anything else? Anything about what she was worried about? Just that she'd found out something about her dad's business and didn't know what to do with the information. She made me promise not to tell anyone she'd asked about lawyers. Gavin, is Natalie in trouble? I don't know, I admitted, but I'm trying to find out. After hanging up with Kira, I sat staring at the name Teresa Grant. If Natalie had consulted her, that conversation would be privileged. The lawyer couldn't tell me anything even if I asked, but maybe I could find out if Natalie had actually contacted her, if there was some kind of paper trail. I looked up Teresa Grant's office and found she was part of a small firm specializing in employment disputes and whistleblower cases. Whistleblower. The word stuck with me. What if Natalie had discovered something illegal about Raymond's business and tried to report it? What if that's why she'd disappeared? I spent the day at school barely paying attention to classes, my mind churning through possibilities. When I got home that afternoon, my mom was in the kitchen with Aunt Diane. They stopped talking when I walked in, that obvious abrupt silence that meant they'd been discussing something they didn't want me to hear. "Hey, sweetie," Mom said with forced brightness. "How was school?" "Fine." I looked at Aunt Diane, who looked worse than I'd ever seen her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair uncombed, her hands trembling slightly as she held a coffee cup. "Hi, Aunt Diane. How are you?" She attempted a smile. "I'm managing. How are you, Gavin?" "I miss Natalie," I said, watching her reaction. I wish I could talk to her. Aunt Diane's eyes filled with tears immediately. She looked away, setting down her coffee cup like it had suddenly become too heavy. "She's doing well. She just needs time." "Time for what?" Mom shot me a warning look. "Gavin, we've talked about this." "No, we haven't. Everyone keeps saying she's fine and she left and she needs space, but nobody will tell me why. She's my cousin. Don't I deserve to know what happened?" Aunt Diane stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. "I should go. Thank you for the coffee, Leslie." She hurried out before my mom could stop her. After the door closed, Mom turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, somewhere between anger and fear. "What are you doing?" "Asking questions. What are you doing? Why is everyone acting like Natalie died instead of just moved? It's complicated, Gavin. Adult situations that you don't need to be involved in. I'm 18. I'm an adult. Legally, maybe. But this is family business that doesn't concern you. Everyone keeps saying that. Family business. What does that even mean?" Mom's voice dropped. "It means that Raymond is handling a difficult situation with his daughter, and the rest of us are supporting him however we can. That includes not spreading rumors or asking invasive questions." "What situation? What happened?" "I'm not discussing this with you. Drop it, Gavin, please." The please sounded desperate. That's what got me. Not the warnings or the deflections, but the desperation in my mother's voice, like she was begging me to stop asking questions for my own safety. That night, I drove to Teresa Grant's law office. It was after hours, the building mostly dark, but I could see lights on the third floor where her firm was located. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to decide if I had the nerve to do what I was thinking about doing. Finally, I got out and walked to the building entrance. The main door was locked, but there was an intercom system. I pressed the button for Grant and Associates. A woman's voice answered. "Hello? Hi, my name is Gavin Crawford. I'm looking for information about my cousin Natalie Shepard. I think she may have consulted with your firm." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry, I can't discuss client information. Attorney-client privilege. I understand. I'm not asking you to tell me what she said. I just need to know if she's okay. Our family hasn't heard from her in weeks, and I'm worried about her safety." More silence. Then a buzzing sound as the door unlocked. "Third floor. Take the elevator." Teresa Grant was maybe 50, with sharp eyes and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a bun. She met me in the hallway outside her office, arms crossed, studying me like I was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "You have 5 minutes," she said. "Tell me why you're really here." I told her everything. The sudden disappearance, the family's strange behavior, Uncle Raymond's threats, the comment about the girls, the storage facility, the ghost house, all of it. She listened without interrupting, her expression giving nothing away. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You understand I can't confirm or deny whether Natalie was ever a client of mine," she said finally. "Yes, but hypothetically, if a young woman came to me concerned about illegal activities within her family's business, and then that young woman subsequently disappeared without a trace, I would be very concerned about her welfare." My heart started pounding. Hypothetically, she agreed. "And in that hypothetical situation, I might advise a concerned family member to document everything they've observed and take it to law enforcement. Not just local police, but perhaps the FBI. If the illegal activities in question crossed state lines or involved federal crimes." "What kind of federal crimes?" Teresa Grant's expression hardened. "The kind that involve exploiting vulnerable people for profit. The kind that destroy lives. The kind that people like your uncle go to great lengths to hide." She walked back toward her office door, then paused. "There's a special agent with the FBI field office here, a woman named Diana Reeves. She specializes in human trafficking cases. If someone were to call her with credible information, she would take it seriously." She handed me a business card with a phone number written on the back. This is her direct line. Don't call from your own phone. Use a payphone or a burner. And Gavin, be careful. If your uncle is what I think he is, he's dangerous. People who profit from trafficking don't hesitate to eliminate threats. If this story keeps your interest, please subscribe to get more stories like this. I left her office with the business card burning a hole in my pocket and my mind reeling. Human trafficking. The words felt too enormous, too evil to associate with Uncle Raymond, the man who'd taught me to drive, who'd given me birthday cards, who my father trusted. But it fit. The girls, the ghost house, the compartmentalized life, the cash transactions, Natalie finding out something about his business and needing a lawyer, her sudden disappearance, the solution Raymond had mentioned. Oh God, what if the solution was getting rid of Natalie because she'd discovered what he was doing? I drove to a convenience store and bought a prepaid cell phone with cash, sat in the parking lot and dialed the number Teresa Grant had given me. Special Agent Diana Reeves answered on the second ring. Reeves, my name is Gavin Crawford. I was given your number by Teresa Grant. I have information about possible human trafficking connected to my uncle, Raymond Shepard. There was a pause. What kind of information? I told her everything I'd documented, everything I'd observed. She listened without interrupting, and I could hear her typing in the background. When I finished, she said, I need you to send me everything you have. Photos, documentation, dates, locations. Use an encrypted email service. Can you do that? Yes. Good. I'm going to look into this. But Gavin, I need you to understand something. If your uncle is involved in trafficking, he likely has connections and resources that make him dangerous. You can't confront him again. You can't let him know you're looking into this. Can you do that? I already confronted him. Last night. He knows I was watching him. She swore under her breath. What exactly did he say to you? I recounted the garage conversation. When I mentioned the camera, she swore again. That's witness intimidation and obstruction. He's creating documentation to use against you if needed. You need to stay away from him completely. Don't go to his house. Don't follow him. Don't engage. Send me your evidence and let me handle this. What about Natalie? Is she okay? I don't know, Diana said honestly. But I'm going to find out. Send me everything you have within the next 2 hours. And Gavin, watch your back. If Raymond figures out you contacted law enforcement, things could get dangerous very quickly. I spent the next hour uploading everything to an encrypted email account and sending it to the address Diana provided. Photos, timestamps, property records, screenshots, my written observations, everything. When I finished, I felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. I'd crossed a line. There was no going back from this. If Raymond found out, if my family found out, if I was wrong about everything. But I wasn't wrong. Every instinct I had told me I wasn't wrong. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I went to school, came home, acted normal, and waited for Diana Reeves to contact me. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach jumped. Every time I saw my parents, I wondered if they knew what I'd done. On the 4th day, my prepaid phone rang at 7 in the morning. Gavin, it's Diana Reeves. We need to talk. Can you meet me this afternoon? There's a coffee shop called The Grind on 5th Street. Come alone and make sure you're not followed. The Grind was a busy college hangout, crowded enough to blend in, but public enough to be safe. Diana Reeves was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with clear sightlines to all exits. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back and tired eyes that had seen too much. She stood when I approached and shook my hand firmly. Gavin Crawford, thank you for coming. Sit down. I sat. She slid a folder across the table. I've spent the last 3 days investigating your uncle. What I found is worse than either of us imagined. She opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, financial records, property documents. Raymond Shepard has been running a trafficking operation for at least 5 years, possibly longer. He uses his car dealerships to launder money and recruit vulnerable women, usually young women in financial distress who come in looking for work or vehicle financing. He identifies targets, offers them employment opportunities, and moves them through a network of properties, including the house you identified. We've been building a case against a trafficking ring in this region for 2 years, but we couldn't identify the financial hub. You handed it to us. I stared at the documents, feeling sick. What about Natalie? Diana's expression softened. Natalie contacted Teresa Grant 6 weeks ago. She'd discovered financial discrepancies in her father's business records and started investigating. She found evidence of the trafficking operation and came to us. She's been in witness protection for the past 3 weeks, working with the FBI to build the case against her father. She's safe, Gavin. She's the one who wanted to disappear. We helped her do it. Relief flooded through me so intensely I felt dizzy. She's okay. She's really okay. She's scared and traumatized by what she learned about her father, but yes, she's okay. And she's incredibly brave. The testimony she's providing will put Raymond away for a long time. Does Aunt Diane know? Diana shook her head. No. Natalie didn't want her mother to know what her father was doing. She was afraid Diane might be complicit, or at minimum would try to protect Raymond. Only a few people in your family know where Natalie really is, and we're keeping it that way for her safety. Why are you telling me this? Because we need your help, and because you deserve to know the truth after putting yourself at risk to find it. Raymond is becoming suspicious. He's moving assets, changing patterns, preparing to either run or eliminate evidence. We need to move on him soon, within the next few days, but we also need to make sure he doesn't suspect anything before we're ready. She pulled out another document, this one a consent form. We want to wire you. Have you interact with Raymond one more time, get him talking, maybe get him to admit to something incriminating on tape. It's risky, and you can say no, but it would help ensure the charges stick. When would this happen? Tomorrow night. There's a family dinner your aunt is hosting. You'd wear a wire, engage Raymond in conversation, see if he lets anything slip. We'd have agents nearby in case things go wrong. I thought about Natalie, hiding in witness protection, brave enough to testify against her own father. I thought about the women Raymond had exploited and trafficked. I thought about how close I'd come to just dropping this, to listening to my parents and letting it go. I'll do it. Diana spent the next hour coaching me on what to say, how to engage Raymond without being obvious, how to signal if I felt unsafe. She gave me a wire so small I could barely see it, showed me where to wear it, tested it 3 times to make sure the audio was clear. Remember, she said, your goal is to get him talking about Natalie, about his business, about anything that might be incriminating. But your safety comes first. If at any point you feel threatened, you say the phrase, I need to call my dad, and we come in immediately. Understood? Understood. Good. We'll have agents in a van 2 houses down and 1 agent posing as a utility worker on the street. You won't see them, but they'll be watching. Don't look for them. Act natural. Can you do this? I nodded, trying to project more confidence than I felt. That night I barely slept. I kept running through scenarios in my head, trying to imagine how the conversation with Raymond would go, what I'd say, how he'd react. Every scenario ended badly. By the time I got up the next morning, I'd convinced myself this was a terrible idea. But I also knew I couldn't back out. This was bigger than me, bigger than my fear. The family dinner was scheduled for 6 p.m. I arrived at Aunt Diane's house at 5:50, wearing the wire under my shirt, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. My parents were already there, along with my younger sister Chloe and my grandparents. Everyone seemed tense, the conversation forced and surface level. Raymond arrived at 6:15, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing his salesman smile. He hugged Aunt Diane, shook my dad's hand, ruffled Chloe's hair. When he got to me, his smile didn't change, but his eyes did. Gavin, good to see you. Hey, Uncle Raymond. Dinner was tortured. Aunt Diane had made pot roast, and everyone pretended to enjoy it while making small talk about weather and sports, and anything except the elephant in the room, which was Natalie's absence. Finally, as dessert was being served, my grandmother brought her up. I do wish Natalie could have joined us. I miss that girl. Aunt Diane's face tightened. She's busy with her new job, Mom. You know how it is starting out. Still, she could have called. It's not like her to just disappear. Raymond set down his fork with deliberate care. Natalie is an adult, making adult decisions. We need to respect her privacy and her choices. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. The way he said choices, like they were a euphemism for something darker. This was my opening. I've been worried about her too, I said, keeping my voice casual. Last time I saw her, she seemed stressed. Was everything okay with her? Raymond looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes, the same expression he'd had in the garage. What do you mean? I mean, she seemed like something was bothering her. Work stuff, maybe? Or family stuff? Natalie had some personal issues she needed to work through. That's all. What kind of personal issues? My dad cut in sharply. Gavin, drop it. But I couldn't drop it. I needed to push. I just think it's weird that she left so suddenly without saying goodbye to anyone. Don't you think that's weird, Uncle Raymond? The table went silent. Everyone was staring at me now, confusion and discomfort on their faces. Raymond smiled, but it was his predator smile, all teeth and no warmth. I think Natalie made the best decision for herself. Sometimes people need to cut ties and start fresh. There's nothing weird about that. Even from her family? From people who love her? Sometimes, especially from family. Sometimes family can be the most toxic influence in someone's life. The comment was pointed, directed at me. He was warning me to back off. I should have backed off. But I thought about Diana's instructions, about getting him to admit something. Is that what happened? Did family become toxic for her? Raymond's smile vanished. What are you implying, Gavin? I'm not implying anything. I'm just trying to understand why my cousin would ghost her entire family without explanation, unless there was something specific she was trying to get away from. My dad stood up. That's enough. Gavin, apologize to your uncle. For what? For asking questions? For being disrespectful and stirring up trouble. Apologize now. I looked at Raymond, who was watching me with those calculating eyes. I'm sorry if my questions made you uncomfortable, Uncle Raymond. I'm just concerned about Natalie. I appreciate your concern, Raymond said smoothly. But it's misplaced. Natalie is fine. She's happy. She's exactly where she wants to be. The way he said it sent ice down my spine. Exactly where she wants to be. Like he'd put her somewhere. Like he'd made sure of it. I opened my mouth to push further when Aunt Diane burst into tears. Can we please just have one family dinner without talking about this? Please? The subject was dropped. The rest of dinner passed in awkward silence. When it ended, people dispersed quickly, everyone eager to escape the tension. I was heading to my car when Raymond appeared beside me. Walk with me, Gavin. It wasn't a request. He started walking toward the backyard, and I followed, hyper-aware of the wire under my shirt, of the FBI agents watching from somewhere nearby. We reached the far end of the yard, away from the house, surrounded by trees. Raymond turned to face me. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "Let what go?" "The questions. The suspicion. Whatever amateur detective fantasy you're living." His voice was calm, almost gentle, which made it more terrifying. "I'm just worried about Natalie." "No, you're not. You think you've figured something out. You think you're protecting her or exposing me or some heroic nonsense like that. But you have no idea what you're dealing with, Gavin. No idea how deep this goes or who's involved or what happens to people who ask too many questions. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There are systems in place that are bigger than you, bigger than me, bigger than our family. Systems that don't tolerate interference. Natalie learned that the hard way. I'd hate for you to learn it too. What did you do to her?" The question came out before I could stop it. Raymond smiled that predator smile again. "I saved her from her own stupidity. She was going to ruin everything, destroy this family, expose things that needed to stay hidden. I couldn't let that happen. So, you made her disappear. I made sure she understood the consequences of disloyalty, just like I'm making sure you understand right now." He stepped closer, and I could smell the wine on his breath. "Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you figured out, forget it. Delete it. Move on with your life. Because if you don't, if you keep pushing, I will make sure you regret it. Do you understand me?" "I understand that you're admitting to threatening both me and Natalie." Raymond's expression flickered, just for a second, uncertainty crossing his face. Then his eyes went to my chest, to where the wire was hidden under my shirt. His face changed completely, rage replacing calculation. "You're wearing a wire! You fucking little traitor! You're wearing a wire!" He lunged at me, his hands going for my throat, and I stumbled backward, shouting, "I need to call my dad! I need to call my dad!" Suddenly the yard was full of people. FBI agents appearing from everywhere, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "FBI, get on the ground! Hands behind your head!" Raymond froze, his hands still reaching for me, his face twisted with fury and disbelief. 3 agents tackled him, forcing him down, cuffing him while he screamed about lawyers and false arrest and family betrayal. Diana Reeves appeared beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" I nodded, unable to speak, shaking all over. She pulled the wire from under my shirt. "You did great. We got everything. Admission of threatening witnesses, confession to making Natalie disappear, everything. He's done." They hauled Raymond to his feet, and as they led him past me toward an FBI vehicle, he looked at me with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've just done. No idea who you've crossed. This isn't over, Gavin. Not even close." Then he was gone, pushed into the back of a black SUV, and I was left standing in my aunt's backyard surrounded by federal agents, trying to process what had just happened. The aftermath was chaos. My parents came running out of the house demanding to know what was happening. Diana Reeves showed them her credentials and explained that Raymond had been arrested on federal trafficking charges. My mother went pale and had to sit down. My father just stood there, staring at the FBI vehicles, looking like his entire world had shifted. Aunt Diane collapsed completely when they told her. She'd had no idea what her husband was involved in, no idea about the trafficking operation or the money laundering or any of it. She'd thought his late nights were about business, his secretiveness about protecting his success. Learning the truth destroyed her. The next weeks were a blur of interviews, depositions, and media coverage. Raymond's arrest made national news. The FBI raid on his properties uncovered evidence of a trafficking network that spanned 4 states and involved dozens of victims. His car dealerships had been fronts for identifying and recruiting vulnerable women. The storage facility had held financial records documenting years of transactions. The ghost house had been a holding location. It was worse than anyone had imagined, and Raymond had been at the center of all of it. Natalie was eventually able to come out of witness protection once Raymond was securely in custody. I saw her for the first time in 2 months at a debriefing with Diana Reeves. She hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. "You found me," she whispered. "You didn't give up. I couldn't. Your family." She pulled back, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry I disappeared without telling you. I wanted to, but they said it wasn't safe. I was so scared my dad would hurt someone if he knew I'd gone to the FBI. He tried to hurt me, but he failed, and now he's going to prison for a very long time." The trial lasted 3 months. Raymond's lawyers tried everything, claiming entrapment, challenging the wire recording, attacking the credibility of witnesses. But the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, victim testimonies, the recorded admission to me, Natalie's detailed knowledge of the operation, all of it built a case that was bulletproof. The jury found him guilty on all counts: human trafficking, money laundering, witness tampering, and conspiracy. The judge sentenced him to 35 years in federal prison. When they read the sentence, Raymond showed no emotion. He just stared straight ahead, that salesman's smile finally gone, replaced by nothing. Empty. After the trial, Diana Reeves met with me one last time. "You should be proud," she said. "What you did took courage. Real courage. You could have walked away when your uncle threatened you, when your family told you to drop it. But you didn't. You followed your instincts, and you saved lives. I just wanted to find Natalie. You found her. And you found 15 other women who were trapped in your uncle's network. Women who are free now because you wouldn't stop asking questions. She handed me an envelope. This is from one of them. She wanted you to have it. Inside was a handwritten note. It said, "Thank you for being brave enough to see the truth. Thank you for not looking away. You gave me my life back." I still have that note. I keep it in my desk drawer as a reminder that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is ask questions when everyone tells you to be quiet. That sometimes the people you trust most are the ones you need to question. That family loyalty doesn't mean protecting someone who's hurting others. Natalie lives in a different state now, working for an organization that helps trafficking victims rebuild their lives. Aunt Diane divorced Raymond and changed her name, trying to build a new identity, separate from the shame of what her husband had done. My parents struggled for a long time with the betrayal, with the fact that they'd told me to drop it, that they'd almost made me complicit in Raymond's crimes through their insistence on family privacy. We eventually worked through it, but something shifted in our relationship. They learned to trust my judgment. I learned that being an adult sometimes means defying the people you love. As for me, I finished high school and went to college to study criminal justice. I want to work for the FBI eventually, want to help people like Diana Reeves take down people like my uncle, want to make sure other families don't get destroyed by the kind of evil that hides behind respectable facades and charitable donations and Businessman of the Year awards. I think about that night in Raymond's garage sometimes, about the moment his hand landed on my shoulder and he asked me how long I'd been watching him. The answer, it turns out, was exactly long enough. Long enough to see the cracks in his performance. Long enough to understand that something was deeply wrong. Long enough to save Natalie and 15 other women whose names I'll never know, but whose freedom I'll always carry with me. Raymond was right about one thing. I did figure something out. I figured out that the worst monsters don't look like monsters. They look like successful businessmen and beloved uncles and pillars of the community. They count on that disguise, count on people's reluctance to question, count on family loyalty and social niceties to protect them. But they're wrong about one crucial thing. They're not untouchable. They're not invincible. All it takes is one person willing to look, one person willing to ask questions, one person willing to risk everything to expose the truth. Sometimes that person is a traumatized young woman brave enough to testify against her own father. Sometimes that person is an 18-year-old kid who refused to accept that his cousin just moved away without saying goodbye. Sometimes that person is you. 3 years later, I'm sitting in Diana Reeves's office at the FBI field office as an intern. She's telling me about a new case, a trafficking network they suspect is operating through legitimate businesses in the Northeast. As she talks, I take notes, my mind already working through the patterns, the red flags, the questions that need to be asked. "We need someone willing to go undercover," Diana says. "Someone young enough to be credible as a job applicant, smart enough to recognize the signs, brave enough to see it through. I thought of you." I look up from my notes. "When do I start?" She smiles. "That's what I thought you'd say. We'll brief you tomorrow. But Gavin, this is dangerous work. These people are sophisticated, connected, and willing to kill to protect their operations. Are you sure you're ready?" I think about that night in the garage, about Raymond's hand on my shoulder, about all the women we saved because I wouldn't stop asking questions. I'm ready, because some questions are too important to stop asking, some truths are too dangerous to ignore, and some fights are worth whatever they cost. My uncle taught me that. He just didn't mean to. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.